Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Look Who's Chalking. Gary, welcome back to the East Coast. How was your bachelor party? And please don't say anything that will incriminate you at a later date.
Thanks, Andy. It was great, man. It was in Las Vegas for week one of NFL season. We had a fantastic time. It's been a week-long recovery process, as you can imagine, but feeling good, ready to go for week two. Excited to finally fully dive head first, as you can imagine, in Vegas for my bachelor with my friends. Football wasn't necessarily my top priority last week, but it was certainly there. We were at the Westgate.
It was definitely up there, though. It was definitely up there. Like, if I just didn't know you and I happened to walk by you, I would think you're some, Gen Z kid just who can't stop watching TikTok when he's at the middle of a place, just ignoring what's going on. I would have assumed that was you, but you actually were trying to see if Allen Robinson got his fourth catch.
That is correct. We did get a VIP booth at the Westgate, which is considered like the super book, the biggest sports book in the world, for Sunday football. So that was great. And we had a fantastic time. We were gambling, made a little bit of money gambling Sunday. So, it was just a great trip. Happy to be back. Excited for week two. Giants play tonight on Thursday. I'm looking forward to another 0-2 Giants start to a season, and just keep,
I will say
keep
that
on
was
rolling.
a very, very, very uninspiring start to the season.
I said to my dad the other day, the Giants retaining Jason Garrett was the worst move that this organization has made in many, many years, and that includes the hirings of Ben McAdoo and Pat Shurmur. So it was. There's nothing to be inspired by. The offensive line stinks. Daniel Jones has shown us nothing to think that he could actually be a future of this organization. And I think we're in for another disappointing year, which for what has been going on for, the better part of a decade now. So.
That's very frustrating, especially considering if you had slightly better offensive line play. Obviously, Barkley's not there yet, but he'll get better as the year goes on. When you think about having Galladay, Shepard, Slayton, and Ingram, I mean, there would be. That's better than 75% of this league. And
sure.
When you see it go to waste because of a poor offensive line, that's brutal.
Yeah, poor offensive line and terrible play calling, or terrible offensive system that doesn't yield more than 12 points a game usually.
But I just saw today Daniel Jones 4-0 against Washington and 0-5 primetime, something like that. But look, things can shift with a win tonight.
Yeah, they have to win. Honestly, they have to win the next two games for this season to not. Cause with Atlanta looking as bad as the Giants did, they play Atlanta next week. So
and then you got but the kids starting tonight. Heineke. Taylor Meineke, the Michelin man over there, there's a considerable chance they could win that game.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I have zero faith in this team right now. But I would love to be wrong. I mean, the only good thing is Sterling Shepard. Keep him on your DFS rosters, man. When he's healthy, he's productive, and he looks as good as ever. That's for sure.
And he was, I believe, ranked below Evan Ingram. Even he was ranked deep this year for season long
for no reason. For no reason other than he has injury history but you know what? He was 5,100 and guess where he landed up? Right in the perfect lineup. So there you go.
Wow. Speaking of which, we'll look at last week, and I know you were disgusted by the Giants. We'll get to what I was disgusted by in a minute. But that was one hell of a random nugget we talked about, and how you had mentioned Jamal Williams being the type of guy that would end up in a perfect lineup, a la Nyheim Hines last year. And what do you know? Week one.
All I'll say about that is, lineup. It's those kind of guys you have to look for every week. We're looking for correlation and game script, right? If you really, really dug into last week, you probably should have realized that in some capacity, you should have locked a 49ers somewhere in your lineup, right? We were both high on Mostert. We'll get to that. Obviously, he got hurt in the first quarter, but who was the benefactor of that? Deebo Samuel, right? Somebody in that game was going to be hurt from that week. And if that's the case, there's a good chance there's some other correlation in that game. So you want to think about game script on the other side. Lions playing from behind. We know Jared Goff can put up big numbers. Who's going to be the drop down, type of guy that can just pick up the quick completions, pick up quick points. Somebody like Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift was very good as well. But both those guys are going to be heard from in a positive game script coming from behind this year. That will not be the last we hear of either of those dudes.
And then also another factor that really helps them is their lack of wide receiver play. Like, I understand when Tyrell Williams is your number one, it's just you're not going to go out there often. And, if I can half pat myself on the back with all the tight ends, everyone putting themselves on Pitts last week, I said that Hawkinson would be a great option with knowing how much that Goff likes to throw over the middle. But before you think this is a place where we're just going to start patting ourselves on the back, let's just get right into it with the first reintroduction of one of our worst segments, but best segments, called I'm Sick.
I'm sick. I'm sick.
I swear to God, I'm sick.
I am sick.
I'm going to start the bidding, this is not even going to be an I'm sick. This is going to be a we're sick. Because, Gary, both you and I are both sick over my Men's Warehouse pick of the week in Raheem Mostert. And I know it's easy for me to say, but hey, 2 carries, 20 yards. He was on his way to 240. But anybody who knows him knows that the possibility of not finishing the game is absolutely in the potential outcomes for Raheem Mostert. Many times he's come back and left with the knee, too.
Yep.
So my Men's Warehouse of the week, I will take responsibility for it. I'll only give myself a 15% bailout, maybe 20, because of the injury. For you, I'll let you explain, but my guess is once you somehow woke yourself up from being hungover on Sunday and found out that Sermon was inactive,
yep,
you started bumping him up in different lines. So how did he screw you?
Yeah, so he was already probably the highest owned running back in my build, probably sitting around like 30-ish% on Saturday night. And then Sermon goes inactive. I bump him all the way up to 50%, which is a number that I'm not usually comfortable with, but I saw it as such a sure thing, and I wanted to have leverage on the field. So I knew he was going to be somewhat chalky at that point. But probably 25, 28%, I think is what he ended up at, something like that. But I was thinking, okay, I want to double that. So let me get to 50% on the field. So half my lineups had Raheem Mostert. And at that point, you're just screwed. What are you going to do? It's part of the game. I still think it was the right play call. It was the right call optimally. As you said, we saw him get off to that 20-yard carry. They were up big for much of that game. He would have been fed, but it is what it is. And now we get the Trey Sermon hive to come on out. He'll be active this week. He'll be competing with carries for other rookie Eli Mitchell, who seemed to carry the load last week. And, the Niners run game will still be heard from. But watch. Jeff Wilson's going to be the guy that screws all of you in week 17. Just watch it.
Because Shanahan loves him.
Yep. And he's just on a PUP 6-week thing right now. He's coming back. He'll be there. So
anyway, Raheem Mostert, I wish you well, but we're sick. And I'll give you a little, when the follow-up sneeze, when you go, Ashoo, and then the little second one would be my Tanyan and trusting a couple Packers. That's just one where I got slapped. Yep. Okay. However, I told you that Bills-Pittsburgh game was going to be ugly up there. All right. So. That. All right, wash that all away. We're now on to week 2.
Hold on. I'm going to give you one. You could edit this however you want. I'm giving you one. I'm sick. And I believe it was in the lineup that I gave out one of the weeks last week. But the entire Atlanta Falcons offense, I am absolutely sick.
I swear to God, I'm sick.
It makes no sense to me. First of all, the Eagles were one of the historically worst passing defenses of all time last year. We're playing against a quarterback that's making his 5th career start, whose receivers, are Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor. That's regardless. On defense, you let them chop you up. Matt Ryan looked like he is absolutely cooked. And Calvin Ridley, the best receiver, maybe the best receiver in fantasy this year, nowhere to be found. Russell Gage had 2 targets, I think. Kyle Pitts at 5,100. TJ Hawkinson's 4,900 made him look like a little guy on the schoolyard. And it was just the whole thing. I mean, in every way, it made sense to be in on that game and be in on Atlanta at home. And they just were embarrassing, and now the Eagles are the only 1-0 team in the NFC East. It's going to be hard for me to trust that Atlanta offense until I see something again. We'll see if I go back to them. But Matt Ryan, feel free to drop him in season long as far as I'm concerned. I'd rather be streaming freaking Teddy Bridgewater for all I know. But I am so freaking sick of that team because that seemed like the safest cash game stack last week, and week 1 they just came to screw you. So I'm sick, Atlanta. I'm sick.
So they have a new coach, I'm assuming. Atlanta?
Yes, they do.
Until you see this coach and the quarterback come up with a dynamic that works for the both of them, and they're implementing this new system, I would not feel comfortable at all.
Yeah.
And also look, I beat this drum in the offseason. People just slapping rookies in there like they're trustworthy. Oh, you could add this to my sickness too. More on the Jets. Sermon being inactive, Melvin Gordon now playing Javonte Williams, and Kyle Pitts probably getting fewer catches than Hayden Hurst.
Yep.
So,
yeah, but on the flip side of that, the high end rookie receivers, the first round guys, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. I'm not saying all of them hit value, but a couple of them did, right? Devonta Smith was almost in the perfect lineup. Jamar Chase went 5 for 80 with one after everyone said he couldn't like walk in the offseason. So I totally hear you. But
that's fair.
But that is the era we're living in with modern first round receivers right now. They are almost immediately fantasy productive. But to go back to that Falcons, their new head coach is Arthur Smith, who was the mastermind of that Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill Titans offense. So why don't we transition from there? Because another team that looked terrible last week was the Tennessee Titans, who are in a game environment this week that people should maybe be interested in.
Oh my God! So this week too, the way if I'm going to give it a theme, it's going to be bounce backs.
Yeah.
There are just way too many candidates who are primed for bounce backs, but because of the nature of human beings, they're going to be very scared to take them, which means if you have the stones to take them, you'll be rewarded in terms of having, a little percentage over the field there. There are endless names that you can talk about, ranging from those Titans that you just mentioned, whether you want to talk about Julio and his new quarterback, whether you want to talk about Tannehill or Henry or Ezekiel Elliott or somebody that I love this week, Tyler Boyd, Mike Evans. It does not end. There are so many that are going to give you good value, and they've been discounted because of one bad week, and they know people are going to start freaking out. So that will be the theme for this week. So let's just head right into the slate like we normally would.
Sure.
And I treat this, I put on my normal guy hat. I put on my generic hat without a logo from Lids, and I put it on, and no sponsor for them. But I put it on, and I go, all right, I'm a regular guy. What am I going to do? And when I looked at all the games, I think a regular guy, and there's my one I think for the week, I believe that a regular guy sees the Chargers hosting the Cowboys saying, oh my God, did you see the Cowboys week 1? I mean, yeah, they might lose, but they're throwing and points, and Herbert looked great. Everyone said he looked fantastic. He got Williams went off, and Allen's always good for targets. Eckler, another guy for a bounce back. This game to me has to be one that many people are highlighting.
Yeah, and I don't know how to get away from it. I'll say this. There are so many fantasy pieces in this game that you can get contrarian within a chalky game environment. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
So here's the thing. Dallas on 10,
like I just said, Zeke, right. Either running back will probably not be as highly owned.
For sure. Dallas on 10 days rest, and it's in warm weather in LA. Like it marries to a game that actually has the chance of going over. Both quarterbacks looked good coming off. Both maybe had a little. Obviously, Dak had the injury question mark, but Herbert had the year 2. Was he as good as we thought? Question mark. He looks very, very good in week 1. So it's just a game that is going to be heard from. The question is,
and Dallas just lost a pass rusher for
DeMarcus
6
Lawrence.
weeks or even more.
Yep, exactly. So that's going to help the Charger side of things for sure. So the question is, how chalky do you want to be with it, right? Do you want to pick on those Dallas receivers who on early ownership, Cooper and Lamb are coming through as the most owned guys on the slate? Do you want to go on the other side, as you mentioned, like a Herbert type stack with some of those guys, which might be a little bit less chalky than the Dak to his guys? Do you want to pick on the running backs? Do you want to take some of the second, third receivers that before tournaments?
I think a good option out there, if you look at the amount of targets he got and you look at the potential for this to be throw the ball kind of game, good old Jared Cook.
Yeah.
Did you see his use last week?
He had 8 targets last week, and you saw what Gronk just did to Dallas, right? So, I mean, my thing with Jared Cook, he drives me like a freaking wall.
But until he gets that one shot to his knee, when he's one of the primary, it's something about that offense. They just throw it and they don't hesitate.
No, they
so.
don't.
Mike Williams will be out by the second half. He'll land on his knee on one of his touchdowns. Then you'll really be soaking up. I believe Cook is 4,300 if I remember correctly.
He's 39.
Oof.
Yeah, really cheap. Which is that's the range that I want to be in with tight end this week with Bill Kelsey on the slate. That's pretty much the range I want to be in. That like 32 to 4,200 range is probably where I'm looking at tight end.
And if you are someone that wants to get in on that game, I don't think that's as wild as playing. Who's the Cedric Wilson?
Mm-hmm.
right?
He's stepping into the Gallup role. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's stepping into the Gallup role. He's just the only problem is he's not Gallup, so you're going to have to take.
No, but you know what though? He is somebody that can be like a shifty gadget for
sure.
For what's his face, Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore. Like
sure.
with him being on the field in all third receiver packages, his targets will go up. He actually has a weird floor at 3,100 this week. It's hard to completely ignore him. I will say that.
Yes, you are correct.